Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and today we're going to be breaking down the fundamentals of my updated model and what it shows for the 2024 election. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this, and make sure to go ahead and donate to our Michigan and Pennsylvania poll crowdfunding. We are conducting polling with SoCal Research as of right now. He is the one responsible for conducting the polling. We are helping with the fundraising and what questions are going to be asked. And so we are on the 538 aggregate, just to show you guys that we do have some sort of validity, and we are targeting the states of Michigan and Pennsylvania, about 750 registered voters in each of these polls. So if you guys would be able to donate to us, these polls are not free to conduct, so if you guys would be able to donate, that would be greatly appreciated as of right now. But we are going to go back and break down this model. And so the three fundamentals that this uses is the difference in approval ratings between both candidates, the candidate's net spread approval, that is the incumbent president, and we have the RCP aggregate. Those are the three main fundamentals that are basically plugged into the model that you can modify, and that'll give you an electoral college result. The fourth thing is really the demographic model that I end up creating when I average out all of the polling modeling. That demographic model is also shoved in there as well when we do that. And so for 2020, I actually did the model for 2020, and then what I did is I actually got the adjusted error for every single state, comparing it to the actual election result, and applied it to the 2024 model so we could correct for errors from the previous election. And it's pretty interesting because a lot of it actually matches the polling data errors from 538. I actually thought that was pretty fascinating, that a lot of the model errors were actually pretty similar to the errors from 538. I thought that was pretty fascinating. And so when looking at this, we actually see a pretty big victory for Biden in our 2020 model. The model basically goes back to 2004 and 2016. It basically tracks the swing and trend from those cycles, and then it essentially looks at the demographic model, looks at the polling average for every single state. And we also have the second part of the model down here, which basically tracks the difference in approval ratings. You see the average shift, you find the nonpartisan leaning of every single state or a projected margin, and then you basically end up getting the estimated vote share of the candidate here, and that ends up giving you the final margin. When you average out that column and you average out this column all the way over here, you get your final results over here, which ends up actually coming out to this map right here. You see Biden would get 350 electoral college votes to Pence's, and Trump's 188, which, this is a pretty lofty landslide for Joe Biden, but realistically, I only got two states incorrect, as you see here. The only two states that the model would have gotten wrong was North Carolina and Florida, and some of the margins in the states are actually not that off. Now, granted, in some of the, more redder states like Mississippi, Iowa, Indiana, Missouri, not even Iowa, because Iowa on this is like a 5-point win, and it was like an 8-point victory, so that's like within margin of error. Montana was like right below the safe category. Utah was pretty bad, and that was mainly because the 2016 demographics was picking up, how much it was shifting to the left because of third-party support. So that definitely kind of messed up the margin. It's actually only a 9-point win on here, which is crazy. Mississippi is like right below the safe category. Ohio was like a 3-point win. It ended up being 8. That's a pretty bad miss. Wisconsin, it's like a 4-point victory for Biden. Michigan, if I were to go to that one, let's go over here. Michigan is 4.5. Wisconsin is the biggest margin in the Rust Belt, mainly because the polling data was really skewed in favor of him. So that's another thing too. We also see here as well something pretty interesting to note. If we go over here, we see the Rust Belt pretty much all lean. Minnesota, I believe, is a 6-point victory. Colorado was like 12. So those were pretty on the money. And New Hampshire was about 8 points. Maine at large was like 11. Virginia was about 11 points. So some of the states are actually on the money. Even if we go to a state like Arizona, we see a 3.1 percentage point victory. Not terribly off, but still kind of iffy in a way. It seems. So that is the electoral college result. And I actually just realized, I don't know why I had that tilt and I don't have Texas tilt. The Texas margin is pretty bad because this model does have Texas in the tilt column. That is pretty abysmal. But I mean, at the end of the day, You know, it was pretty hard to be able to predict 2020. This would have ended up producing a plus 8.3 percentage point popular vote victory for Joe Biden, which technically would have overestimated Joe Biden's support. So that definitely does reflect in the model, and clearly it does show a pretty lopsided victory in favor of Joe Biden. Even a state like California, the margin is like pretty off there actually. And so yes, it is a little off. However, at the same time, I don't want you guys to be discouraged, because what I did was I found the error in every single state, and I have essentially applied it to 2024 to be able to give me a better idea of where my model could actually be next time. And by doing so, that actually allowed me to be able to go ahead and actually try my best to predict this. Now you see the model here shows states like Colorado going red, California's lean blue, Illinois still red, Hawaii goes red. Like, we have some crazy results on this map here, and it's mainly because of Biden's disapproval rating affecting it and the swing in the trend from the different, you know, popular vote as well. New York even goes red on this model, which is really, really fascinating. Even Oregon and Washington go red as well. Vermont stays pretty blue. We have Maryland and Massachusetts getting somewhat competitive. Delaware, Connecticut are still blue. So are California. So this model here, this part of the model is interesting, but this still holds relatively true. We see the difference in their approval rating here. Donald Trump has a, we go over here, he has a 42.4% approval rating. We see Joe Biden 39.0%. And so when you find the difference in their approval rating, you see Donald Trump is ahead by 3.4 percentage points. And that effectively gives you the margins down here. And when you basically average out the results from that, and these are actually weighed a little bit more accurately, this column is weighed a little bit more heavily in the model. And so when you average that out, it gives you these results right here, which, you know, Arizona plus 10.6, Florida plus 16.5, Georgia plus 10.6. We have Colorado plus 4 for Biden. We have, which, by the way, Georgia is pretty spot on, because a lot of the Democrat internals actually have Georgia at pretty much that exact margin. We look at states like New Mexico, you know, that state was basically a 0.5 percentage point victory for Trump and the Dem internals, and that's what I have right now. New York is a 9-point victory for Biden. We see Wisconsin being a 10.9 percentage point victory. Virginia, 1.1% percentage point victory for Donald Trump. We have the state of New Hampshire at 1.5 points. Nebraska second at 3.7%. Michigan at 8 points. Maine at large at 1.2%. Illinois under 5%. So is the state of New Jersey at 3.3%, and Oregon just at 4.7 percentage points. And Donald Trump is winning the national popular vote by 7.4. And me and Gold Crown Politics actually have our adjusted aggregate. When you basically add the historical polling error, Donald Trump is actually winning the popular vote by 7.9. So my model is like half a point off from what the adjusted aggregate shows on that model, which I actually think is really, really interesting, that the adjusted aggregate that we have with the historical polling error pretty much matches what this looks like as of right now. And if we were to basically not have any of the adjustments at all on the model, so like if the model didn't have any of the adjusters, essentially, we would have Virginia going blue, we'd have New Mexico going blue, we would have states like, for example, Illinois being likely. Colorado would actually be closer, believe it or not. Arizona's a little bit closer. Maine at large is still red. Minnesota goes even more red, actually. Nebraska second goes more red. New Hampshire actually becomes more Republican. So literally, even if you were to basically get rid of the correctors from the 2020 model, the only states that would actually change are Virginia and New Mexico. Those are the only states that would actually change. So even if my model is off because of the 2020 correctors, it'll basically be off by 2 individual states. I mean, at most. I mean, yeah, Minnesota, Maine at large, I mean, those are within room for margin of error. And so is Colorado, Illinois, and New Jersey, to be honest. But really, the only 2 states that differ when you basically get rid of the adjusters are the states of Virginia and New Mexico. So when applying the error adjusters for 2020, there's only a 2-state difference. So it's not like, oh my God, if I were to get rid of the adjusters, it actually has a really competitive election. No, Donald Trump still wins relatively easily in the Electoral College even without the adjusters as of right now. And so this is what the model shows. The fundamentals are the RCP aggregate. You have to plug in the RCP aggregate. I'm using the three-way aggregate, or the five-way aggregate, because there are a decent amount of third-party candidates to cycle, so that's why I'm using that aggregate. If there was a head-to-head aggregate, we actually probably, if it was only like head-to-head, the demographic model would have to change, the polling averages would have to change, and as well as the, you know, this swing and the trend as well. So that's kind of that as well. You know, that these two would change the projected popular vote victory from RCP, as well as the net swing, and the demographic pool and polling average would change. And that would kind of produce a little bit of a closer map, but it probably would basically just give Joe Biden states like New Mexico back, Virginia back, etc. And so that's pretty much it for this video, guys. That is the model for the 2024 presidential election. Created one for 2020 to test it back, applied error adjusters, and this is the map that it shows. It shows the exact same thing that I've basically been saying this entire time, by the way. In order for Biden to actually be barely winning the Electoral College, his approval rating needs to be at least -5, and he needs to be leading in the aggregate by like 5 points, and he needs to be ahead of Trump in favorability by about 5 points as of right now. So it's like Biden would have to have basically a miracle in order to basically win the election. And so at this point, there's really no way I see Biden winning this as of right now. Make sure to go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.